World Without Fish, Chapter 2. We're starting at the middle of page 28. It was in the North Sea in the late 19th century that innovations in fishing began to take place. The North Sea is a body of water rich in fish, which is surrounded by the great European fishing nations such as Scotland, England, France, Belgium, the Netherlands, Denmark, Germany, Sweden, and Norway. Throughout history, these nations competed with one another for fish and fishing territories. Some of these countries had even gone to war over it. Holland and England battled over North Sea herring during the Anglo-Dutch Wars of the 17th century. France and England fought over North American cod in the early 18th century during the Queen Anne's War. For centuries, North Sea nations kept bringing in larger and larger catches with little sign of any decline in the supply of fish. In the early 17th century, the Dutch had 2,000 ships in the North Sea fishing for herring. The British responded by banning foreign fishing vessels within 14 miles of the British coastline. This was the distance visible from the top of a mast. It was the British that first started using a beam trawler in the 14th century. Also called a wandrichum, this was a net suspended from a beam and dragged through the sea. The problem with beam trawlers was that sailing ships didn't have the power to haul huge nets. If the nets were too large and caught too many fish, they would be too heavy to pull, so they had to use small ones. On the other hand, beam trawlers were quite efficient in other ways. The potential of dragging a net through the water and hauling up everything in its path had obvious advantages over setting lines with baited hooks. In addition to requiring no bait, a beam trawler seemed certain to haul in a much higher percentage of the fish it passed. By 1774, beam trawling had become one of the principal fishing techniques in the North Sea. In the mid-19th century, new ideas were aimed at improving the quality of fish and of getting the fish to market fresher. Well boats came into use. These were ships that contained a tank of seawater into which the caught fish would be dumped, enabling fish to stay fresh longer than previously. This meant that fishermen could remain at sea, fishing for a longer period of time. Once the quality of fish improved in England, and most notably in London, the demand for fish rapidly increased. Then in 1848, a dramatic technological advance was created in the port of Grimsby on the North Sea at the mouth of the Humber River, a rail connection straight to London. Because it was a large port, capable of storing ice from not too distant Norway, ice was essential for keeping fish fresh on the way to the market. The port of Grimsby became a premier port for quality fish in London. In 1881, the Zodiac, the first vessel built for dragging fishing nets under steam power, was launched from Grimsby. Dragging nets from engine-powered as opposed to wind-powered ships was a huge technological boon for the fishermen, especially because they could then use the rail line at Grimsby to get the fish to London rapidly. Soon, a rail line and port system were organized. The boats would stay fishing in the North Sea for as long as 10 weeks at a time, all the while offloading their catch to the fleet's carriers, which sped the fish to Grimsby. This system was used until 1901, just a little over a century ago. The southern part of the North Sea is an extremely shallow body of water, which is why it was once so rich in fish, and the boats worked primarily on the even more shallow Dogger Bank, which was teeming with fish. Even though steam-powered vessels had been around for almost 80 years and were proving to be lucrative for the fishermen that used them, by the 1870s, most fishermen were still using sail power. Over the next 10 years, however, 4 things happened. 1. Steam engines got more powerful and became capable of dragging 4 times as deep as the sail-powered draggers. 2. More powerful steam engines opened up new grounds to dragging, including the deeper northern part of the North Sea, as well as the waters around Iceland. 3. Britain became the greatest fishing nation in the world in terms of tons of fish landed. 4. The fish stock of the North Sea started showing signs of a vanishing fish population. The fishing was so good that fishermen didn't worry too much about the decline in the old fishing grounds. They simply moved on to new ones.